Shabbat Shalom. There is a significant and slightly unusual break between the ending of last week's Parsha and the beginning of this week's reading. In the conclusion of Parsha Balak, we have the disturbing incident where Moabite women seduce Israelite men and lead the people to idolatry, worshiping the god Baal Peor. God is incensed at the people. There is a plague that ultimately kills 24,000 Israelites. And it is in this backdrop that Pinchas, the grandson of Aaron, in an act of zealotry, kills Zimri and the Midianite woman Cosbi that he was publicly consorting with. And that's where we break. To pause. Well, this may be a common technique for episodic television. It's unusual for the Torah to conclude a parsha not just in the middle of an action, but also on a negative note with this plague. In general, we go out of our way to make sure not even a single aliyah ends on something negative. But here, the entire parsha ends with this bloodshed and divine punishment. And it's only now, in this week's parsha, that we get to the conclusion, with God giving Pinchas Briti Shalom, my covenant of peace, and the priesthood into perpetuity. On the surface, it looks like God is giving a stamp of approval on Pinchas's actions. But by creating the parsha break here, before we find out whether God approves or not of this vigilante act, the rabbis create an opportunity for us to pause, to sit with the act and its implications, and to be uncomfortable. Pinchas makes us moderns uncomfortable. And we're not alone in this discomfort. As the commentary in the Etz Chaim points out, most post-biblical commentators are uncomfortable with what Pinchas did. There's a lot of ambivalence. Maybe what he did was right for him specifically in this very particular situation, but it is not something to be emulated. Later in the Parsha, in Numbers 27:16, Moses prays to appoint a new leader for the people. In his prayer, he addresses God as Elohei Haruchot L'Kol Basar, God of the spirits of all flesh. Rashi wonders why Moses uses this unusual title, and concludes that in essence what Moses is saying in this prayer is, Master of the universe, the personality of each person is revealed to you, and no two are alike. Therefore, appoint over them a leader who will tolerate each person according to their individual character. The Kotzker Rebbe, Menachem Mendel of Kotsk, builds on this comment of Rashi and connects it back to the beginning of the Parsha. Seeing how zealous Pinchas was, Moses fears that he will be appointed the next leader. Therefore, Moses prays for a tolerant leader and not a zealous one. So Moses, too, may be uncomfortable with Pinchas and his zealotry. I think we can go even further. We can see directly in the text of the Torah that even God's supposed approval might not be quite as clear-cut as it seems. First, we can see the dissonance between Pinchas's act and the reward, a covenant of peace. And it can be read that the covenant of peace is a promise of protection from any retribution from Zimri or Cosbi's families. But there still seems to be something off. In the Hasidic tradition, in a collection, Iturei Torah, we get the following teaching from Rabbi B.Y. Natan. After the great zealousness which he acted upon for God, God gives him a gift of the covenant of shalom, of peace. It is as if the Torah is hinting that the path of peace is always preferable to, and ultimately more successful than, the path of zealousness and war. And I think we can go even further and look at the very letters of the Torah and God's opening words to Moses in the Parsha, we find two unusual letters. The Yud in Pinchas's name is smaller than a regular Yud. And the Vav in Shalom, the covenant of peace, the Vav is broken in two. The Yud in Pinchas's name, I believe, shows us how Pinchas has diminished himself. An act of violence, even a justified one, has changed him. It has made him less than he was before. And then the broken Vav. Any other Vav written in the Torah this way would be invalid and would make the entire Torah it was in not kosher. Here, though, intentionally the Vav is broken. The Vav in Shalom, the peace, is broken. Peace bought through violence, again, even justified, even necessary violence. Peace bought in this way is not whole. And these letters, the Yud and the Vav, are significant in that they are two of the letters that make up God's most holy name. In fact, they're the only letters in Pinchas's name and the word Shalom that are also part of this divine name. I don't think that's an accident. This act of zealotry has, in some way, also diminished and broken God. In other moments of divine anger, our leaders have been able to argue with God and ultimately get God to change course. But here, Pinchas does something a little bit different. Rather than challenging God's anger, Pinchas emulates it. And when God sees this mirror in Pinchas, God then turns back from that divine anger. God then gives Pinchas the covenant of peace, although perhaps a broken one, and directs him to the priesthood, perhaps as a way to channel this zeal into a place where it could be expressed more safely. So we have this break that divides the Parshas. And we have this break in the broken Vav. And we have this diminished Yud. It is my prayer that these can all be a call to us, to make us question, to make us confront difficult truths. And may we be inspired to may we be inspired to repair that which is broken and enlarge that which has been made small. Shabbat Shalom.